Hai-soo was unaware that she was the daughter of a wealthy family. For 2 years, she worked as a cleaner in her own family's company, toiling away until she was drenched in sweat. Her disheveled appearance was noticed by Yoo Kyung, who quickly offered her a handkerchief. When Hai-soo got a clear look at Yoo Kyung's face, she was stunned. She couldn't believe that someone as insignificant as herself had caught the eye of Yoo Kyung. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Hai-soo immediately expressed her thanks, unaware that the compassionate Yoo Kyung was, in fact, her birth mother. The reason for their lack of recognition stemmed from a fire 20 years prior. Watching the room engulfed in flames, the mother had desperately wanted to rush in and save her daughter, but the child seemingly perished in the inferno. 8 years later, however, she unexpectedly received a photo from an orphanage, along with a letter revealing that one of the children was her daughter. Yoo Kyung secretly contacted the orphanage director and offered a large sum of money to keep quiet. All she wanted was for the director to discreetly help her find her daughter. But could the director truly keep such a secret? To find Hai-soo, Yoo Kyung organized a birthday party for the orphan children under the guise of a company event, even carefully preparing pretty dresses for them. While the children were enjoying themselves, she arranged for her subordinates to switch the cups they used, intending to discreetly identify her long-lost Hai-soo. However, this action was witnessed by Hyun-deok's secretary. Furious, Hyun-deok summoned the orphanage director and angrily demanded to know who had given her the authority to act without consultation. Terrified, the director knelt and confessed about the hush money, revealing that she had conducted a blood test confirming Hai-soo as Yoo Kyung's daughter. Hyun-deok was horrified by this news. She absolutely could not allow Yoo Kyung to find Hai-soo, because she herself had orchestrated the fire all those years ago. This shocking news inadvertently reached the ears of the director's daughter, Si-young. She was deeply disappointed, as she longed to be adopted by Yoo Kyung and become the daughter of a wealthy family. To confirm whether Hai-soo was truly Yoo Kyung's daughter, Si-young snuck into the director's office in the middle of the night to steal the blood test report. When her mother arrived, Si-young pleaded with her not to interfere, determined to find a way to become Yoo Kyung's daughter. Her mother was stunned, unable to comprehend her daughter's scheming nature at such a young age. At that moment, Hyun-deok unexpectedly appeared. Upon learning Si-young's desire, she asked the director if she would help Si-young become Yoo Kyung's daughter. The director immediately knelt, vowing to become Hyun-deok's lifelong servant if it meant changing Si-young's fate. Unbeknownst to them, Hyun-deok secretly altered the blood test report. Receiving the falsified results, Yoo Kyung believed Si-young to be her daughter. Thus, Si-young usurped Hai-soo's identity, becoming the heiress, while a heartbroken Hai-soo left the orphanage. 20 years passed. Si-young lived a life of luxury, while Hai-soo, with Yoo Kyung's unwitting help, became a cleaner in the company. Despite her difficult life, her romantic life seemed promising. However, Hai-soo was unaware that her fiancé was secretly involved with Si-young. Having replaced Hai-soo as the heiress, Si-young eagerly anticipated Yoo Kyung showering her with gifts she desired. However, the gifts Yoo Kyung chose were those that Hai-soo would have liked. Si-young suspected that Yoo Kyung hadn't fully accepted her yet. Undeterred, Si-young vowed to win Yoo Kyung's heart and steal everything that rightfully belonged to Hai-soo. 20 years had passed in a blink. Upon seeing Hai-soo again, Si-young still held resentment towards her. Learning of Hai-soo's impending marriage, Si-young was consumed with envy. She snidely asked Hai-soo if she had used some sort of trickery to bewitch someone, questioning how anyone could possibly love someone as poor and lowly as her. Angered, Hai-soo retorted that her love with her fiancé was genuine, and that her future mother-in-law treated her very well. She then handed Si-young a wedding invitation. Seeing the fiancé's name, Si-young nearly fainted. She was all too familiar with this man. That day, Hai-soo and her future mother-in-law, Kong-suk, were supposed to discuss wedding arrangements. However, upon entering the private room, Hai-soo was shocked to see her fiancé, Jae-ho, on a blind date. Hai-soo's family, outraged, immediately grabbed Kong-suk's hair, furious at her audacity. They couldn't believe that someone about to get married would have the nerve to go on a blind date. Kong-suk's disdain for Hai-soo stemmed from her poverty and orphanage upbringing. She raged within the hotel, lamenting her son's fate, a prosecutor marrying a mere cleaning lady. Jae-ho, unable to bear the scene any longer, intervened and quickly left the hotel. Unexpectedly, Jae-ho went straight to Si-young. Upon learning of Jae-ho's upcoming marriage, Si-young didn't appear upset. She knew Jae-ho's heart still belonged to her. However, Si-young was a calculating woman. The man she truly desired was the heir to a multi-billion-dollar fortune, and coincidentally, he and Jai-ho were close friends. Some time later, Jai-ho finally remembered Hai-soo. He expected her to be furious, but Hai-soo was surprisingly gentle. She calmly stated that she didn't care about his past and only wanted a stable marriage. Jai-ho realized the depth of Hai-soo's love for him. He declared that although he was currently just a small-time prosecutor, with hard work, he would become a wealthy tycoon. He hoped Hai-soo would understand his struggles and promised her a heartwarming wedding. Hai-soo was unaware that her impending wedding would mark the beginning of her tragic fate. Entering In-ha's room, Si-young discovered telltale signs of a recent tryst. She confronted In-ha, questioning his behavior so close to their wedding. In-ha arrogantly replied that with his wealth and power, he was entitled to see other people. Expecting Si-young to be enraged, he was surprised by her calm demeanor. Si-young only cared about his vast fortune. Sensing his continued arrogance, she threatened to have her father investigate his company if he didn't honor their engagement. In-ha, knowing the power and influence of Si-young's father, a prominent prosecutor, lost his bravado. Her father also had a very capable colleague, Jai-ho. To get back at In-ha, Si-young secretly continued her affair with Jai-ho. Upon learning of his impending marriage, she feigned reluctance. She considered Jai-ho her Prince Charming, as he could both help her control In-ha and provide an opportunity to get revenge on Hai-soo. She was reluctant to lose such a useful man. However, Jai-ho was tired of this life. He now just wanted a normal life with Hai-soo. Hearing Si-young's words, he quietly offered her his best wishes. But would this manipulative woman give up so easily? Unbeknownst to Si-young, In-ha and Jai-ho had known each other for a long time, sharing a close bond and confiding in each other. After learning of Si-young's thoughts, In-ha offered his sincere congratulations, calling her a truly calculating woman. He suggested that if he truly wanted to marry, he should choose Hai-soo, claiming that his relationship with Si-young was purely superficial. He was only marrying her to protect his company's reputation. Jai-ho, hearing these insulting words, didn't argue. He knew In-ha was a seasoned player and perhaps truly had his best interests at heart. The wedding day arrived quickly. Hai-soo joyfully awaited the sacred moment backstage. Unbeknownst to her, Si-young, now the wealthy heiress, also donned a pristine white wedding gown, intent on completely destroying Hai-soo's happiness. Upon learning that Si-young had arrived at the wedding venue, Jai-ho rushed to confront her. Before he could speak, Si-young pulled him aside, preparing to whisk him away. Seeing her in a wedding dress, Jai-ho questioned her intentions, accusing her of trying to ruin him, and turned to leave. Si-young quickly blocked his path, admitting her actions might seem drastic, but reminding him that she was a wealthy heiress. Being with her would save him 30 years of struggle. This stopped Jai-ho in his tracks. Becoming rich was his lifelong dream. After a brief moment of hesitation, he left with Si-young, abandoning the still dreaming Hai-soo. Fortunately, Hai-soo's boss was a compassionate man. Seeing her heartbreak, In-ha decided to stay by her side. Perhaps he was developing feelings for this Cinderella. However, In-ha was Si-young's fiancée. Meanwhile, Si-young and Jai-ho had escaped to a hotel. Jai-ho worried their relationship would be discovered. If In-ha found out, he would never recover. Si-young remained calm, declaring her intention to marry Jai-ho and destroy In-ha. Coincidentally, Jai-ho was a prosecutor. In-ha's company had engaged in bribery, and with a little effort, Jai-ho could ruin him. They vowed to rise to the top of the wealthy elite. It wasn't until evening that Jai-ho remembered the abandoned Hai-soo. When she found him, she questioned his infatuation with the other woman, asking why he would run away on their wedding day. Jai-ho calmly stated he simply didn't want to get married, that he wasn't ready to be a husband. Hai-soo didn't press further, realizing his heart was no longer with her. She was unaware that the woman who stole Jai-ho was Si-young, the same woman who had stolen her identity and her birthright. Their escape from the wedding was witnessed by Yoo Kyung. She confronted Si-young, demanding an explanation. Why, with a fiancé already, would she steal someone else's happiness? Seeing her daughter's lack of remorse, Yoo Kyung ordered her to stay away from Jai-ho, warning that if her fiancé discovered the truth, she would never marry into wealth. Si-young bristled at Yoo Kyung's concern, believing she still harbored feelings for Hai-soo, the girl she had believed to be her daughter 20 years prior. After Si-young left, Yoo Kyung contacted Jai-ho, recounting what she had seen. She questioned his motives, asking if he was looking for a shortcut to wealth. Jai-ho insisted his love for Si-young was genuine, revealing their plan to destroy In-ha and seize his fortune. Yu Kyung warned him that her daughter's intentions were not as simple as he thought. This gave Jae-ho pause. He began to feel like he was being manipulated by Si-young. To test Si-young's sincerity, Jae-ho approached her father, asking what kind of man Si-young hoped to marry. Her father proudly stated she would marry a top tycoon like In-ha. This statement pierced Jae-ho's heart. He realized Si-young was likely using him. He turned and went to Hae-soo. Looking at his adorable daughter, he vowed to be a good father. This heartwarming scene was witnessed by Si-young, and Jae-ho quickly followed her. He warned her to leave him alone, stating his desire for a life with Hae-soo. If she wanted to marry In-ha, why involve him? Si-young angrily replied that the marriage was arranged, and she didn't want a loveless marriage, declaring she would soon break up with In-ha. Upon hearing Jae-ho say he no longer wanted to be with her and just wanted a normal life, Si-young was stunned. Back with Hae-soo, when she asked about his relationship with Si-young, Jae-ho claimed they were just discussing work. The love-struck Hae-soo didn't pry, but a nagging feeling of unease told her Jae-ho might be deceiving her. Impoverished and struggling to survive, Hae-soo worked a humble cleaning job. While engrossed in her work, a handsome and charming man appeared. Due to a spill on the floor, In-ha slipped, causing Hae-soo to fall as well. Looking up, she realized the man was the company's CEO. After helping her up, In-ha praised her diligent work ethic, remarking that whoever married such a kind woman would be very lucky. Hae-soo simply smiled in response. This seemingly insignificant encounter marked the beginning of their connection. One day, Hae-soo invited In-ha to meet. She tearfully recounted her fiancé's abandonment, confessing her humility towards Jae-ho and her confusion over his infatuation with the other woman. In-ha was surprised by her story. Although unfamiliar with such situations, he empathized with her heartbreak. At this point, he was still unaware that the woman who had lured Jae-ho away was his own fiancée. As Hae-soo continued to pour out her sorrows, she eventually succumbed to the alcohol and fainted. Fearing for her safety, In-ha decided to carry her home. Unbeknownst to them, their entire conversation was witnessed by Si-young. In-ha carried Hae-soo home, much to her family's astonishment. They couldn't believe he had personally brought her back. After a brief conversation, he left. Long after his departure, In-ha couldn't shake the image of Hae-soo from his mind. He suspected he might be falling in love. When Hae-soo awoke, her daughter encouraged her to spend more time with In-ha. Although too young to understand adult relationships, the little girl sensed In-ha's affection for her mother. Soon after, Si-young arrived at Hae-soo's home, accusing her of trying to sabotage her relationship. Hae-soo explained that while they had spoken, it was purely platonic, with no romantic involvement. Enraged, Si-young grabbed Hae-soo, intending to teach her a lesson. Knowing that showing weakness would only embolden Si-young, Hae-soo pushed her away. At that moment, Jae-ho returned. Si-young immediately played the victim, feigning distress and even shedding a few tears. Seeing this, Jae-ho took Si-young outside, embracing and comforting her, believing she had been bullied by Hae-soo. Unbeknownst to them, Hae-soo had followed. Witnessing their embrace, she finally realized that this manipulative woman was the one who had ruined her wedding. A beautiful, wealthy young woman entered a luxury clothing store, treating expensive garments like disposable rags. When a sales clerk mentioned a promotion, she arrogantly struck the clerk across the face with her purse. This cruel woman was, in fact, the impoverished Si-young, living a lie after stealing another's identity 20 years prior. To maintain her charade, she devised a plan to become a celebrity, willing to sacrifice love and marry a wealthy man she didn't love. They publicly announced their impending marriage, a devastating blow to the love-struck Jae-ho. He had abandoned his fiancée and child for the manipulative Si-young, only to face this bitter outcome. By now, Jae-ho had become completely consumed by malice. He told himself that even if it meant risking life and limb, he would have the woman he loved. As a prosecutor, he immediately led officers to Yu Kyung. He claimed an anonymous tip accused her company of illegal transactions, demanding her cooperation as vice president in the investigation. This reckless act not only infuriated Si-young but also made his superiors furious. Baem Seok warned Jae-ho to immediately rescind the order for his wife's arrest or face ruin. But Jae-ho was unafraid. He knew everyone was now under his control. It turned out that just the night before, Jae-ho had received a valuable video recording. It clearly documented Chinha Group's illegal dealings, and also included footage of the company heir's car accident. After watching the video, Jae-ho was overjoyed. Although he didn't know who was targeting Chinha Group, For Jai-ho at this moment, it was undoubtedly a golden opportunity to turn the tables. Jai-ho then took the video to In-ha's grandmother, the chairwoman of Chinha Group, and recounted its contents. Hyun-deok was so enraged her blood pressure spiked. She couldn't guess who was targeting her, but the immediate problem was how to handle this scandal. Seeing her distress, Jai-ho promptly proposed a solution. Yoo Kyung would take the fall, on the condition that Si-young marry him. Ultimately, Hyun-deok agreed to Jai-ho's demands, because to her, sacrificing an outsider was better than ruining the company. Jai-ho was somewhat surprised. He felt like he was about to become incredibly wealthy. But at this point, he was still unaware that Si-young was an impostor, not the real heiress. She was merely a pawn in Hyun-deok's hands. However, what she didn't anticipate was In-ha, who had vehemently opposed the marriage, suddenly insisting on marrying Si-young. In reality, In-ha couldn't stomach the thought of Jai-ho benefiting from the situation. This gave Hyun-deok a headache. After all, she had just agreed to Jai-ho's demands, and In-ha was her own grandson. To divert his attention, Hyun-deok told In-ha about his father's car accident and warned him to be careful of those around him. Afterwards, In-ha went to his father's hospital room. Looking at his comatose father, In-ha swore to find the mastermind behind it all. But you would never guess that the mastermind was Yoo Kyung. She had anticipated Jai-ho going to Hyun-deok and also predicted Hyun-deok agreeing to his demands. What deep-seated hatred could make the gentle Yoo Kyung despise Hyun-deok so much? The Cinderella who didn't know she was the heiress went to her birth mother's company to apply for a designer position. Just as she took out her carefully prepared outfit, she discovered the pants were mysteriously ripped. She worried this job application was doomed. At that moment, Hai-soo noticed the old sewing machine nearby. Skilled with her hands, she quickly got to work. Racing against the clock, Hai-soo sewed several dresses. Soon, it was time for the models to take the stage. The judges present were all astonished by Hai-soo's creations. The company's vice president asked her what style of design this was. Hai-soo explained that she made the flared skirts to give customers a feeling of closeness to nature. Thus, Hai-soo received unanimous praise. This made the impostor daughter, who was also a judge, furious. Seeing this, In-ha quickly took Si-young outside. Si-young became even angrier after being taken away. Why were such designs recognized? In-ha told her to shut up. He knew her dirty secret. It turned out that the night before the competition, while inspecting the company, In-ha had witnessed Si-young using scissors to sabotage Hai-soo's work. So, In-ha asked her why she would treat a pitiful girl so cruelly. What deep-seated hatred could exist between people who grew up in orphanages? Moreover, now that Si-young was the heiress, why did she still need to bully Hai-soo? Si-young, upon hearing this, became furious. She claimed to be far more pitiful than Hai-soo, having endured suffering unimaginable to ordinary people. In-ha warned Si-young to look out for herself from now on and not to abandon her inherent kindness for money. Si-young, already opposed to the marriage, grew even angrier, not wanting to marry this heartless keyball heir. When she once again sought out her beloved Jai-ho, he dropped a bombshell. He might be the heir to Chinha Group and was preparing for a paternity test. In other words, Jai-ho could be Hyun-deok's grandson, inheriting billions. Si-young was ecstatic. She never imagined the man she truly loved could be a keyball heir. After learning this news, Yoo Kyung contacted Jai-ho. She told him to strive to gain control of Chinha Group, promising her full support in becoming the heir. Jai-ho admitted his suspicions about his parentage were just that, suspicions. Indeed, the DNA test results revealed Jai-ho was not Hyun-deok's grandson. To fulfill her revenge plan, Yoo Kyung tampered with the results and presented them to Hyun-deok. Hyun-deok was thrilled to see the falsified paternity report. After all, she now had a grandson who was a prosecutor. But she was unaware that everything was part of Yoo Kyung's scheme. Hai-soo's daughter was hit by a car while crossing the street. Panicked, Hai-soo rushed her to the hospital. Midway through surgery, the doctor informed the family that due to significant blood loss, an immediate transfusion was needed to save the child's life. Hai-soo frantically called the child's father, but her calls went unanswered. Just as Hai-soo was losing hope, Jai-ho finally arrived. Hai-soo assumed he would readily donate blood. But to her shock, he made an outrageous demand. He said he would donate, but only if she handed over the child after the surgery. Hai-soo was devastated. The man she once loved most was using their child as a bargaining chip. Heartbroken, Hai-soo knelt on the floor in despair. At that moment, she felt like the most helpless mother in the world. But faced with her child's life hanging in the balance, Hai-soo agreed to Jae-ho's terms. The reason Jae-ho insisted on taking the child was that he had recently been acknowledged as Hyun-deok's grandson. But to enter the wealthy family, he needed to bring his child along. Moreover, Hyun-deok promised Jae-ho that if he brought the child, she would allow Si-young to marry him. Though this demand would separate mother and child, faced with such tempting conditions, Jae-ho agreed. After all, his dream was to marry Si-young and become a Keeball heir. After the surgery, Hai-soo held her child's hand tightly, feeling helpless and like a failure as a mother. If not for Jae-ho being able to save her child's life, she would never have let him take her. At this point, Hai-soo was still unaware that Jae-ho's motive was to gain entry into the wealthy family. During their parting, the child told her mother that she would only stay at the rich house for a few days and would soon return. Tears welled up in Hai-soo's eyes. She knew this goodbye might be forever. Jae-ho then brought the child to Hyun-deok, who was overjoyed, feeling like the happiest person in the world. Hyun-deok had even thoughtfully prepared a luxurious bedroom for the child. But she didn't know that Jae-ho wasn't her real grandson. The next morning, Hyun-deok announced the good news to her relatives, instructing them not to bully the child. However, the child's departure brought immense grief to Hai-soo's family. Upon learning what happened, Hai-soo's aunt went to see Hyun-deok. Upon meeting her, Min-cha knelt, explaining Hai-soo's devastating state since the child's departure and begging Hyun-deok to return the child. But the cruel Hyun-deok heartlessly refused, warning her that if she caused any more trouble, she would make Hai-soo disappear from this world. Min-cha agitatedly demanded an explanation. During the argument, Hyun-deok accidentally pushed Min-cha down the stairs. Seeing Min-cha unconscious, Hyun-deok froze in fear. She didn't know how to cover up her mistake, but what she didn't expect was that Si-young, from a distance, had recorded the entire incident on her phone. She had undeniable proof. Excited, Si-young slowly approached Hyun-deok. She said she would pretend she hadn't seen anything, on one condition: she gets 90% of the company's shares. Hyun-deok was furious. She couldn't believe this once meek girl had become so manipulative. After Hyun-deok left, Si-young brought Jae-ho, the man she had her sights on, to the scene. Seeing the unconscious and injured Min-cha, Jae-ho immediately wanted to take her to the hospital, but Si-young stopped him. She said they absolutely could not take Min-cha to the hospital. Si-young quickly opened her phone and showed Jae-ho the video of Hyun-deok pushing Min-cha. She seriously told him that this video was crucial leverage against Hyun-deok. If things went well, they could not only get married, but also acquire 90% of the company's shares. Just as Jae-ho was contemplating this, Min-cha suddenly regained consciousness. Upon waking, she immediately realized Si-young was behind everything. Si-young, thinking Min-cha had been fatally injured by Hyun-deok, was shocked to see her alive and accusing her. In anger, Si-young pushed Min-cha, but this seemingly light push caused a fatal accident. Min-cha was truly killed by Si-young. To protect his beloved Si-young, Jae-ho took the body to the riverbank at night and called Hyun-deok. He confessed to killing Hai-soo's aunt. This terrified Hyun-deok, as Min-cha had only been pushed by her. How could she have died at the hands of her supposed grandson? She fearfully asked Jae-ho if anyone else knew. To win Si-young's heart, Jae-ho falsely claimed he was the sole perpetrator. Hyun-deok told Jae-ho to leave quickly, promising to take care of the situation. When Hai-soo arrived, she couldn't even see her aunt's face one last time. Grief-stricken, she had no idea that Si-young was responsible for her aunt's death. Si-young, after careful consideration, decided to stay with Jae-ho. The next morning, she went to see Hyun-deok. She declared she no longer wanted to marry In-ha and only wanted to be with Jae-ho. Hyun-deok was enraged. She couldn't understand how a nobody could dictate terms to her. Seeing Hyun-deok's arrogance, Si-young revealed the video. Hyun-deok was stunned, suddenly feeling that her tragic fate might be about to begin. The mother lay in her hospital bed, but her daughter showed no concern upon learning that donating a kidney was necessary to save her life. She was restless, repeatedly asking the doctor if a kidney transplant was absolutely necessary. The doctor confirmed that using the daughter's kidney was the best option for Yoo Kyung, given their biological relationship. Si-young immediately panicked, as she wasn't Yoo Kyung's biological daughter. She worried that Yoo Kyung might become suspicious if she refused to donate. Yoo Kyung's subordinate, learning of the situation, went to see the doctor. She said that although she and Yoo Kyung were only colleagues, she wanted to be tested to see if her kidney was a match. Si-young's assistant overheard this conversation from outside the door and reported it back to Si-young. Remembering that Hai-soo was Yoo Kyung's real daughter, the cunning Si-young knew she couldn't let them reunite. In a shocking move, she deliberately caused a traffic accident. Facing an oncoming motorcycle, Si-young calmly stepped into its path. When Yoo Kyung arrived, Si-young was already in a hospital bed. Looking at her injured daughter, Yoo Kyung was heartbroken. Si-young claimed she wanted to donate her kidney, but the accident had left her willing but unable. Yoo Kyung decided against using Si-young's kidney, unaware that Si-young had intentionally injured herself and that she wasn't her biological daughter. Later, the hospital contacted Yoo Kyung with news that shocked her. At this point, Yoo Kyung was still unaware that Hai-soo was her biological daughter. To thank the girl who saved her life, Yoo Kyung decided to adopt her and announced this decision in front of the entire family. Hyun-deok was shocked, as this girl was all too familiar. 20 years ago, she had personally orchestrated the swap of their identities. Later, Hyun-deok met privately with Yoo Kyung and asked if she was using this opportunity to change Hai-soo's fate. Yoo Kyung explained that she simply wanted to express her gratitude, with no other motives. Hyun-deok didn't respond, still believing that Yoo Kyung was incapable of any significant action. But did Yoo Kyung truly only intend to adopt Hai-soo? Si-young, living as the Keeball heiress, wasn't panicked upon learning of Hai-soo's adoption. She was pregnant. When Yoo Kyung found her, Si-young excitedly shared the news, explaining why she couldn't donate her kidney. Yoo Kyung immediately embraced Si-young, her own health taking a backseat to her daughter's pregnancy. To protect her false identity, Si-young called her father. She told him about the pregnancy and how it prevented her from donating a kidney to Yoo Kyung. Upon hearing this, Baeum-seok knelt before Si-young, believing only her kidney was a perfect match for her mother. Just then, Yoo Kyung arrived. Seeing her distraught daughter, she warned her husband never to discuss the surgery with Si-young again, emphasizing the importance of the pregnancy. Baeum-seok then contacted Hai-soo, relaying his request. Hai-soo immediately agreed, but on one condition: she regained custody of her daughter. She was willing to undergo the transplant as long as her daughter was returned to her. The Cinderella girl was horrified to discover the Keeball heir she secretly admired appeared to have stopped breathing. Panicked, she was about to take him to the hospital. Just as Hai-soo picked up her phone, someone rushed up and stopped her, claiming In-ha was dead and there was no point in calling for help. This statement terrified Hai-soo. She couldn't believe Si-young was so cruel. As Hai-soo tried to confirm if In-ha was truly dead, she noticed the necklace he wore, the same one she had worn since childhood, a keepsake connecting her to her birth mother. Si-young snatched the necklace, claiming it as her own. Seeing Si-young's smugness, Hai-soo knew there was a secret hidden within. But the cruel Si-young accused Hai-soo of being a thief, trying to steal her mother and her wealthy life. Hai-soo angrily questioned who her real mother was. Just as they were arguing, Yoo Kyung arrived. Si-young immediately played the victim, feigning distress. This enraged Yoo Kyung, who pushed Hai-soo away, not allowing anyone to bully her daughter. Then, Yoo Kyung noticed In-ha lying on the ground and frantically called the hospital. After the call, she accused Hai-soo of killing In-ha and trying to frame her daughter. Terrified, Hai-soo couldn't defend herself, unsure how to face Yoo Kyung. At that moment, In-ha's grandmother, the Keeball matriarch, also arrived. Seeing her grandson on the ground, Hyun-deok grabbed Hai-soo's clothes, enraged and ready to punish her. But Hyun-deok didn't know that Si-young had accidentally caused In-ha's injuries and was even planning to destroy the evidence. At this crucial moment, Hai-soo's presence provided Si-young with a scapegoat. What kind of torment would the unfortunate Hai-soo now face? After taking In-ha to the hospital, Yoo Kyung immediately realized the gravity of the situation. To protect her daughter, she decided to sacrifice Hai-soo, the woman who had once donated a kidney to her. Hai-soo was framed by the powerful Keeball family and sent to prison. As she prepared to serve her sentence, Hai-soo contacted Yoo Kyung. She said she was ready to accept a fair judgment, but she had to remind Yoo Kyung that Si-young might not be her biological daughter, because the necklace that symbolized her identity had been stolen by Si-young. Hai-soo then pulled out some of her own hair and suggested Yoo Kyung get another paternity test. Seeing Hai-soo's actions, Yoo Kyung was stunned. She had a feeling that Hai-soo was her real daughter. Back home, Yoo Kyung held the necklace she had given to her biological daughter and lost herself in thought. Suddenly, Si-young snatched the necklace. She questioned how her mother had the necklace since Hai-soo had stolen it. Yoo Kyung became suspicious. Si-young said that Hai-soo was manipulative and had ulterior motives, only thinking about replacing her. Although Yoo Kyung loved Si-young dearly, recalling Hai-soo's pitiful appearance, she still wanted to find out who her real daughter was. Hearing her mother's suspicion, Si-young became furious. She knew that Yoo Kyung must have spoken to Hai-soo, so she demanded a paternity test, otherwise, she would feel wronged for the rest of her life. After Si-young left, Yoo Kyung was lost in thought. She felt a little guilty towards Si-young, who had lived with her for 20 years. And the reason why the scheming Si-young could pull this off was because she had planned everything in advance. When Yoo Kyung brought the test samples to the testing center, Si-young's henchman reported the situation to her. Fearful of being exposed, the manipulative Si-young went directly to Hyun-deok, the person who had orchestrated her swapped identity. Si-young pleaded, saying that as long as she could overcome this hurdle, she would obey Hyun-deok for the rest of her life. Therefore, Hyun-deok arranged for her subordinates to falsify the DNA test results so Hai-soo would no longer bother them. Si-young arranged for Hyun-deok to visit Hai-soo in prison. When Hai-soo received the paternity test report, she was overjoyed, thinking she would soon be reunited with her mother. But unexpectedly, she was met with a cruel rejection. Hyun-deok told her that her mother knew about their biological relationship, but to continue living within the wealthy family, she chose not to acknowledge her. Even if time were turned back 20 years, she would still choose to abandon Hai-soo. Upon hearing this, Hai-soo burst into tears. She couldn't believe her mother could be so heartless. Heartbroken, Hai-soo decided she would never acknowledge this cruel Yoo Kyung as her mother. But at this time, she didn't know how much effort her mother had put into uncovering the truth. Yoo Kyung had even personally retrieved the DNA report, but was devastated to discover that Hai-soo wasn't her biological daughter. The kind-hearted mother was left speechless with grief. Even though Hai-soo wasn't her biological child, she was the one who had put her in jail. The day before Hai-soo began her sentence, Yoo Kyung visited her. Hai-soo thought her mother had come to acknowledge her, but instead, Yoo Kyung directly presented the paternity test report. Seeing the not-related result, Hai-soo knew the Yoo Kyung before her didn't want to acknowledge her, because the report Hai-soo herself possessed clearly indicated they were mother and daughter. Yoo Kyung said she would take good care of Hai-soo's child and promised to compensate her with a large sum of money for emotional distress after her release. Hearing these mocking words, Hai-soo flew into a rage. She warned Yoo Kyung never to bother her again. Although her fate was tragic, she didn't need the concern of a cruel mother. Just like that, Hai-soo angrily began her prison sentence. While reading the newspaper, she even saw the wedding announcement of her former fiancé. At this point, she couldn't understand why her fate was so tragic. But there was a piece of good news. The Keeball heir who secretly admired her showed signs of waking up. However, the doctor said that even though he had regained consciousness, the aftereffects of his brain injury included partial memory loss. Looking at the familiar faces around him, In-ha didn't show much excitement, because in his eyes, there was only Hai-soo. After In-ha recovered, he actively sought out Jae-ho. He wanted to ask him why he had been hospitalized. Jae-ho said it was because of Hai-soo's cunning actions. If it weren't for Si-young's rescue, he might still be lying in a hospital bed. She thought she would live a comfortable life, but what awaited her were endless days of hardship. In order to be released from prison early and see her daughter, Hai-soo always presented herself as the best-behaved inmate. In her free time, she wrote letters to her daughter, asking her to visit if she had time. The child was overjoyed to receive the letters. Although she didn't understand adult matters, she knew that only In-ha could bring her to see her mother. She also understood that the handsome uncle definitely still liked her mother. Fortunately, In-ha really did bring the child to visit. As soon as they met, the little girl burst into tears, her eyes brimming with tears, unsure when her mother would be released from prison. She held up her thumb and told her mother to stay strong. Upon hearing this, Hai-soo immediately agreed. Although she didn't know who had put her in prison, she told herself that as long as she held on to her belief, she would definitely be exonerated. Seeing the pitiful mother and daughter, In-ha's heart ached. After leaving the prison, In-ha reassured the little girl not to be afraid. Although he had suffered a brain injury, he believed it wouldn't be long before he found the person who had harmed him. It turned out that this man had suffered a brain injury not long ago and had been hospitalized for 2 months. During that time, the Hai-soo he loved had been unjustly imprisoned. Although he didn't know what had happened, In-ha believed that the kind-hearted Hai-soo couldn't have harmed him. Soon after, he received a video recording of the incident. The footage clearly showed the cunning Si-young pushing him, and his younger brother, Jae-ho, witnessing his unconscious state but not offering any help. This enraged In-ha, and he immediately confronted Jae-ho. In-ha questioned Jae-ho about his heartlessness, asking why he had left him to die. Jae-ho said he only wanted to become the heir to the conglomerate, and he absolutely wouldn't allow his fiancée to become a criminal. He also boasted that their powerful grandmother currently favored him. He arrogantly warned In-ha to behave himself in the future. Afterward, In-ha sought out Hyun-deok for an explanation. Upon meeting, Hyun-deok acted indifferently, as she had no intention of handing the company over to her injured grandson. In-hae declared that he would find the person who framed Hae-soo at any cost and bring them to justice. It was unclear when the pitiful Hae-soo would be exonerated, or when the cunning Si-young would face the consequences of her actions. Yoo Kyung, having framed her biological daughter to protect her adopted one, was completely unaware and even intended to let Hae-soo die in prison. When she learned that Hae-soo wanted to reopen the case, she even directly threatened her, saying that if she continued to pursue it, she would have her daughter killed on the outside. Hearing Yoo Kyung's cruel words, Hae-soo was agitated and determined to defy her. But as soon as she turned away, tears of heartbreak streamed down her face. She still couldn't understand how her own mother could be so ruthless. In reality, all of this was orchestrated by the deceitful adopted daughter. When Si-young realized the assault could lead to imprisonment, she begged her mother to save her. Looking at the pitiful Si-young, Yoo Kyung decided to make Hae-soo the scapegoat. At this point, Yoo Kyung didn't know Hae-soo was her biological daughter. She thought that by putting Hae-soo in prison, Si-young would escape suspicion. However, In-ha, whom Si-young had critically injured, woke up. Upon learning of Hae-soo's wrongful imprisonment, In-ha immediately went to see her. He told her not to panic, as he had not only woken up, but also gathered evidence of Si-young's crime. If nothing unexpected happened, he would bring all the perpetrators to justice. Looking at his determined expression, Hae-soo knew that her exoneration was near. Upon returning home, In-ha announced to the entire family that he possessed crucial evidence of the crime. If Hae-soo wasn't released, he would release the video of the assault. Si-young became extremely tense upon hearing this, as she was the perpetrator in the video. Fearful, she told Jae-ho to probe In-ha's intentions and find out what he was planning. However, upon meeting In-ha, Jae-ho found him resolute in his determination to clear Hae-soo's name and bring all those involved in framing her to justice. With that, In-ha angrily left. This angered Jae-ho, who vowed to teach the arrogant In-ha a lesson. He instructed Si-young to visit Hae-soo in prison and threaten her. Si-young expected Hae-soo to cower, but upon meeting her, she found Hae-soo shared In-ha's unwavering resolve. Hae-soo declared that she was no longer the weak girl she once was and warned Si-young to confess her crimes. But the cunning Si-young completely ignored Hae-soo's words. She angrily told Hae-soo to be humble, lest she die in prison. Not long after, In-ha visited Hae-soo again. He revealed that Yoo Kyung was the one who had put her in prison. Upon hearing this, Hae-soo decided to reveal her true identity. She told In-ha that Si-young was actually the impostor, and she was Yoo Kyung's biological daughter. In-ha couldn't understand why a mother would want to send her own daughter to prison, so he asked Hae-soo for some of her hair. He decided to secretly conduct a paternity test. The pitiful Cinderella never imagined that she was the daughter of a Keeball family. But imprisoned, she had no opportunity to reunite with her mother. After agonizing days and months, the day of her release finally arrived. When the impostor daughter learned of this, she arrogantly rushed to the prison. She knew that once Hae-soo was released, she would undoubtedly reunite with her mother. At this point, the steadfast Hae-soo was unaware of the impending danger. Si-young, sitting in a luxury car, was ready to run Hae-soo over. She angrily vowed to prevent Hae-soo from reuniting with her mother. But just as she was about to hit Hae-soo, she hesitated, not out of mercy, but because she was pregnant. Thus, Hae-soo, filled with excitement, got into a taxi. If nothing unexpected happened, the truth would surely be revealed. But as the taxi turned a corner, a truck came barreling towards it. On her first day of freedom, the unfortunate Hae-soo was involved in a car accident. Jae-ho, standing in the distance, looked on with satisfaction. As Si-young's husband, he had to stop Hae-soo. But no one would have guessed that Jae-ho was Hae-soo's ex-boyfriend. Si-young, nearby, was shocked by Jae-ho's actions. She hadn't expected him to be even more ruthless than herself. Before losing consciousness, Hae-soo heard Si-young's assistant rush over and warn her to give up her pursuit of the truth. Hearing these words, Hai-soo closed her eyes. She couldn't believe Yu Kyung could be so heartless. Unaware of what had transpired, Yu Kyung was worried about Hai-soo, but her calls went unanswered. She didn't know that Hai-soo was in critical condition. But something strange happened. When Jai-ho went to inspect the accident scene, he discovered that the injured Hai-soo had mysteriously vanished. He rushed home and recounted the incident to Hyun-deok, urging the family to publicly declare Hai-soo dead. Later, Jai-ho and Si-young went to see Hai-soo's daughter. Si-young told the little girl that her mother was dead, and if she wanted to live, she had to obey them. The terrified child burst into tears, too young to comprehend the news of her mother's death. She then ran away in grief. By the time Jai-ho found her, the child had fallen asleep, exhausted from crying. Holding a picture of Hai-soo and her daughter, Jai-ho told himself that even if he couldn't find Hai-soo, he would take good care of the child. Sensing that her husband still hadn't forgotten his former love, the pregnant Si-young became jealous. She confronted him, asking if he still wanted to find Hai-soo and raise her orphan child. Jai-ho angrily retorted that whether Hai-soo was alive or dead, she should leave the poor child alone. Si-young became extremely agitated, and in her distress, she suffered complications with her pregnancy. Upon arriving at the hospital, the worst happened. Si-young lost her baby. She furiously blamed Hai-soo for her tragedy, vowing never to forgive her as long as she lived. When Yu Kyung learned of Hai-soo's supposed death, she was filled with remorse. She visited Hai-soo's former home, clutching a photo of her, overcome with a sense of loss. Although Hai-soo wasn't her biological daughter, the sudden separation left her heartbroken. At this point, Yu Kyung still didn't know that Hai-soo was her real daughter. 3 years passed. Yu Kyung gradually emerged from the shadows, becoming not only more beautiful, but also achieving remarkable success in her career. Under her management, the company's revenue continuously reached new heights. Hyun-deok even considered grooming her as the company's successor. Just as Yu Kyung was filled with excitement, Hyun-deok suddenly announced the triumphant return of her grandson, In-ha. This was a significant blow to the ambitious Yu Kyung. Upon his return, In-ha introduced his fiancée to the family. To everyone's astonishment, this elegant woman was Hai-soo, who had mysteriously disappeared 3 years prior. The family stared in disbelief. Hai-soo had been declared dead. How could she be alive? Hyun-deok immediately confronted In-ha, demanding to know why he had suddenly announced his engagement, and why his fiancée was the supposedly deceased Hai-soo. In-ha calmly explained that he had met Hai-soo abroad by chance and that there was no secret to investigate. Yu Kyung was also unsettled. She believed Hai-soo's sudden return must have a purpose. She suspected Hai-soo was a formidable opponent for her and Si-young. To understand what had happened 3 years ago, Yu Kyung sought out Hai-soo, hoping to get some answers. Hai-soo stated that her current priority was her upcoming wedding to Hyun-deok's grandson and angrily warned Yu Kyung to leave her alone. Although she hadn't seen Yu Kyung's face during the car accident, Hai-soo was certain that Yu Kyung had tried to kill her. She no longer cared whether they were biologically related. Even if Yu Kyung was her mother, it was too late. Yu Kyung was bewildered. She hadn't orchestrated the car accident 3 years prior. Why did Hai-soo believe she was behind it? Although she had once considered letting Hai-soo die in prison, her conscience had prevailed, and she hadn't truly wanted to harm her. Hai-soo revealed that before losing consciousness, a woman had approached her and warned her never to acknowledge her mother. Yu Kyung was horrified, as she had never been to the accident scene. Back home, Yu Kyung was deeply troubled. She couldn't understand what had happened. To investigate, she retrieved the surveillance footage from the scene of the car accident 3 years ago. To her shock, she saw her daughter Si-young sitting in a car, watching the accident unfold. She immediately contacted Si-young and questioned why she had been there. Si-young claimed that although she had wanted Hai-soo dead, she hadn't been the one to cause the accident. Because she was pregnant at the time, she had chosen to spare Hai-soo for the safety of her baby. This made Yu Kyung suspect that someone had impersonated her to destroy her relationship with Hai-soo. Si-young reminded her mother that she had seen Hyun-deok's personal secretary around the time of the accident. Upon hearing this, Yu Kyung immediately suspected Hyun-deok. She guessed that Hyun-deok had orchestrated the whole thing, having her secretary impersonate her. So, Yu Kyung immediately summoned Hae-dong. With just a few simple questions, Hae-dong's terrified reaction confirmed Yu Kyung's suspicions that Hyun-deok was behind everything. After parting ways, Hae-dong immediately reported the situation to Hyun-deok. She confessed that she might have revealed her identity. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Hyun-deok ordered her to leave the country immediately, not wanting Hae-soo to uncover any trace of their scheme. Back home, Yoo Kyung complained to her husband about Hae-soo's transformation. She said Hae-soo seemed like a different person, her manner of speaking drastically altered. She couldn't understand what had angered Hae-soo or why she was being treated as the perpetrator. Her husband advised her to stay calm, assuring her that the truth would eventually come to light. Unbeknownst to them, Hae-soo had set her sights on their daughter. With an air of nonchalance, Hae-soo arrived at Si-young's office and arrogantly tossed her resume onto the desk. She declared her intention to apply for the senior fashion designer position at TR Group. Facing Si-young's skeptical expression, Hae-soo claimed to have diligently pursued her studies abroad for 3 years, earning numerous diplomas from prestigious institutions. She further warned Si-young to show her respect in the future, as she might become her superior. This infuriated Si-young, but before she could retaliate as she had in the past, a transformed Hae-soo grabbed her by the collar. Hae-soo declared that she intended not only to reclaim her shares but also to win back her lost love. This startled Si-young, who hadn't realized Hae-soo still harbored feelings for Jae-ho. Turning away, Hae-soo called Jae-ho, certain that he still remembered her. Jae-ho assumed she wanted to discuss business, but upon meeting, Hae-soo slapped him across the face. Distraught, she vowed to ruin him. However, Jae-ho, unfazed, threatened her, reminding her that their daughter was in his custody and that she should obey him if she wanted custody. In an instant, Hae-soo's demeanor shifted. She gently caressed his cheek, confessing that she still cherished their past love. Jae-ho was almost floored by this unexpected display of affection, believing Hae-soo had returned to her former loving self. Hae-soo asked him to wait while she dealt with a more pressing matter, promising to return to him with a completely new image. Next, Hae-soo sought out Hyun-deok. Upon meeting her, she knelt and pleaded for help in eliminating her enemy, Yoo Kyung, the woman who had tried to kill her. Unaware that Yoo Kyung was her biological mother, Hae-soo's plea nearly caused Hyun-deok to laugh aloud. The cruel Hyun-deok relished the prospect of this mother-daughter conflict, as it served her own interests in preventing Yoo Kyung from gaining control of the company. Afterward, she brought Hae-soo to Yoo Kyung. Hae-soo questioned Yoo Kyung about why she had someone else relay a message to her. Yoo Kyung was furious upon hearing this. She insisted she never had anyone relay messages for her, and that the girl who delivered the message was Hyun-deok's personal secretary. If Hae-soo wanted to know the truth, they could confront each other directly. However, Hyun-deok had already sent the secretary abroad, so the misunderstanding between Hae-soo and her birth mother remained unresolved. At this point, Yoo Kyung was still unaware that Hae-soo was her biological daughter. Back home, Yoo Kyung complained to her husband. She suspected Hyun-deok was being malicious and was definitely hiding something. Otherwise, why would she continually make things difficult for her? She had thought that after her daughter returned, she could confide in her. But seeing Si-young's unhappy expression, she didn't mention the incident. She learned that her daughter had argued with her son-in-law. Yoo Kyung told her to treat Jae-ho well, since he still loved her. At this, Si-young's eyes welled up with tears. She regretted telling her mother about the argument with Jae-ho. If Jae-ho apologized, she would definitely forgive him. The next day at work, Si-young unexpectedly received beautiful flowers. Seeing Jae-ho's name on the card, along with the name of a restaurant and a suggested time to meet, Si-young immediately forgave him and decided to continue their relationship. At this point, she was still unaware that Hae-soo had her eye on Jae-ho. After work, she hurried to meet Jae-ho. Seeing Hae-soo's forwardness, Jae-ho wanted to see what she would do. They went to a high-end restaurant. Coincidentally, his current wife was also dining there. Hae-soo acted arrogantly and even shot a smug glance at Si-young. This infuriated Si-young. Feeling this wasn't enough, Hae-soo wiped Jae-ho's mouth and gave him a longing look. Si-young finally lost control. She frantically called Jae-ho, but he saw the call and chose not to answer. He was completely focused on Hae-soo. Left with no other choice, Si-young contacted Hae-soo. Furious, she intended to teach the disobedient girl a lesson. She thought Hae-soo would be intimidated. Unexpectedly, Hae-soo was overly arrogant, claiming she was simply having dinner with Jae-ho and there was no need for such a dramatic reaction. How could Si-young tolerate such mockery? She was about to punish Hae-soo as she had in the past. But then, hearing the commotion, Jae-ho told Si-young to go home. He would handle Hae-soo. After his wife left, Jai-ho told Hai-soo that their child, due to prolonged emotional distress, had lost the ability to speak. Although the child was receiving treatment, it didn't seem very effective. Hai-soo's arrogance vanished. Her daughter was her weakness. After Jai-ho returned home, Si-young flew into a rage. She demanded to know if he still had feelings for Hai-soo, and if he wanted to get back together with her. Jai-ho hastily explained that he and Hai-soo were only discussing their child's treatment and that there were no romantic feelings involved. But do you believe Jai-ho was purely focused on helping Hai-soo? Meanwhile, Hai-soo rushed to the hospital. She learned that the treatment process for this condition was slow. The only way to ensure a faster recovery was to provide the child with a happy childhood. Hai-soo believed that after witnessing her distress, Jai-ho would return their child to her. To survive, she applied for a fashion designer position at her birth mother's company. When the head judge saw Hai-soo's work, she thought the girl before her was a trendsetter and intended to hire her on the spot. At this point, Yoo Kyung was still oblivious to the fact that this was her daughter. The impostor daughter immediately intervened, claiming Hai-soo's designs were too unconventional and outside the mainstream aesthetic. She refused to let Hai-soo join the company. But Hai-soo appeared disdainful. She wasn't worried about the outcome of her application. At that moment, the company president walked in, not giving the judging panel any time to deliberate. She immediately declared Hai-soo the new lead fashion designer. Everyone present was stunned. They couldn't understand why Hyun-deok favored this Cinderella so much. Immediately after the recruitment session, Yoo Kyung contacted Hai-soo. She asked why Hai-soo was associating with Hyun-deok. What deep-seated hatred led her to side with the insidious Hyun-deok? Hai-soo replied that while in prison, she never forgot those who wanted her dead. She also couldn't forget the horrific car accident. Upon hearing this, Yoo Kyung was devastated. She hastily explained that she had initially feared her daughter going to prison would ruin her future. But the car accident 3 years ago was not her doing. She was truly innocent. If she found the mastermind behind the accident, she would bring that person to justice. But Hai-soo remained steadfast. She told Yoo Kyung to drop the pitiful act. She was no longer the easily swayed girl she once was. Yoo Kyung had hidden the secret of her previous childbirth to marry into a wealthy family. Believing her husband to be a simple man, she had adopted a child from elsewhere. Thus, the family lived happily for 20 years. She had thought she could continue living peacefully. But suddenly, shocking news appeared online. The article revealed she had another child and had abandoned the baby at an orphanage. This enraged Yoo Kyung to the point of losing her reason. Upon hearing the news, Si-young immediately confronted her, demanding an explanation. Yoo Kyung exclaimed that the person who wrote the article was despicable. She already had a daughter, so why would anyone claim she had been pregnant before? Her husband quickly learned of the news. He ordered his subordinates to investigate and find the mastermind behind the story, vowing to restore his wife's reputation at all costs. At this point, he was still unaware that the mastermind was his wife's biological daughter, and the daughter they raised was an impostor. Fearing damage to the company's reputation, Hyun-deok immediately called a family meeting. She demanded Yoo Kyung explain to everyone. Was it true that she had another child as the news reported? Yoo Kyung insisted she only had one child, Si-young. If they couldn't find the person behind the article, she was prepared to resign as vice president. But she didn't expect that the person trying to ruin her was her own daughter. After the meeting, Si-young immediately sought out Hyun-deok. She suspected Hyun-deok was behind the article and urged her to stop. If things continued to escalate, her fake identity might be exposed, rendering all her efforts worthless. Hyun-deok stated that the identity of Yoo Kyung's real daughter was no longer important. What mattered was ruining Yoo Kyung's reputation and getting her kicked out of the family. Panicked, Yoo Kyung contacted Hai-soo. She suspected Hai-soo was involved, as she had sensed Hai-soo might target her. Hai-soo remained adamant, claiming she knew nothing about what happened and had no idea who was trying to harm her. At this time, Hai-soo never imagined that the rumor she fabricated was actually true. She also didn't realize she was Yoo Kyung's biological daughter. After Hai-soo left, Yoo Kyung went to her husband. Seeing his suspicious expression, she knew Baem-seok had begun to doubt her. Yoo Kyung swore she would find the mastermind. But things didn't progress as quickly as she'd hoped. Fortunately, Yoo Kyung managed to find the person responsible for the accident that nearly killed Hai-soo 3 years prior. Without a word, Yu Kyung slapped the person across the face. The woman tearfully confessed that she had received instructions from Jai-ho, which led them to orchestrate the car accident. Upon hearing this, Yu Kyung was bewildered. Why would Jai-ho want to kill? After everyone left, Yu Kyung was lost in thought. She suspected someone was hiding a secret. There had to be some connection between her and Hae-soo. The arrogant Yu Kyung suddenly realized that Hae-soo, the one she had relentlessly tormented, was her own daughter. Remembering that she had even been responsible for sending Hae-soo to prison, she couldn't forgive her own stupidity. Her own flesh and blood had been right in front of her, and she hadn't recognized her. Yu Kyung contacted Hae-soo, but Hae-soo was no longer willing to listen. She believed the woman before her didn't deserve to be called a mother, and stormed off. Yu Kyung then confronted Si-young, the impostor who had taken her daughter's place, giving the scheming girl no chance to explain. She demanded, "Did you know Hae-soo's true identity all along? How could you live a lie for 20 years? Si-young confessed that she had impersonated someone else to become the daughter of a wealthy family because she envied Hae-soo's better circumstances. "Why is my fate so miserable?" she cried. This enraged Yu Kyung, who slapped her. "A person's fate isn't a justification for destroying another's happiness," she raged. Si-young, terrified of being thrown out, knelt on the ground. Yu Kyung ignored her and left. After leaving, Yu Kyung immediately thought of finding Hae-soo and acknowledging her. However, Hyun-deok had warned her, "As long as you don't acknowledge Hae-soo as your daughter, you can become the chairman of the company." The impoverished Cinderella, finally aware of her wealthy parentage, should have experienced a joyous reunion. But as she approached the house, she felt a murderous rage towards her mother. Upon entering, she acted politely. Baem-seok asked his wife who the girl was. Panicked, Yu Kyung quickly ushered her husband away. Once he was gone, she called Hae-soo aside for a private conversation. Hae-soo confronted her. "Do you still not want to acknowledge me? Are you going to abandon me again?" Yu Kyung, feeling wronged, insisted she didn't know what had happened all those years ago, but she was certain Hyun-deok was behind it all. "If Hyun-deok hadn't switched the blood test results, you would have been raised as my daughter." But Hae-soo refused to listen. She was convinced Yu Kyung didn't want her. Before Yu Kyung could explain further, Jai-ho arrived with Hae-soo. Si-young immediately confronted Hae-soo. "What are you doing at my house?" Hae-soo retorted that she was so poor, she just wanted to see how the wealthy lived. This statement shocked Yu Kyung so much she dropped her teacup. She had feared Hae-soo would reveal what had just transpired. Baem-seok, overhearing their conversation, became lost in thought. Recent rumors suggested his wife had another daughter. Sensing trouble, Yu Kyung pulled Si-young aside. She told Si-young to stay away from the house. They were no longer mother and daughter. Unwilling to accept this, Si-young threatened, "Do you want me to tell Dad about Hae-soo's true identity?" This infuriated Yu Kyung, who slapped her again. As they argued, Baem-seok entered. "We have a guest," he said. "If you want to fight, do it another time." Yu Kyung suspected her husband had overheard something. She worried about how to explain the situation. But what Si-young didn't expect was that as she was about to leave, she saw her husband acting intimately with Hae-soo. Seeing their increasing closeness, she finally snapped. She told Hae-soo, "Stop seducing my husband. Stop shamelessly interfering in our lives." Hae-soo resentfully claimed she hadn't done anything, saying Jai-ho had contacted her first. This angered Si-young, who slapped Jai-ho. Furious, she guessed that Jai-ho still had feelings for Hae-soo. Just as their argument reached an impasse, Hae-soo's wealthy boyfriend arrived and took her away. In-ha asked her, "Why did you come to your mother's house to cause trouble?" Hae-soo replied that she wanted revenge on Yu Kyung and to disrupt her family's peace because Yu Kyung had once wanted her to die in prison. In-ha told Hae-soo to calm down, suggesting she might have misunderstood Yu Kyung. Meanwhile, Yu Kyung had sought out Hyun-deok, asking for her help. Hae-soo knew about their mother-daughter relationship but still wanted Yu Kyung dead. Yu Kyung wondered if there was any way to make Hae-soo believe the truth about their connection. Hyun-deok stated that their mother-daughter affair was none of her business. Hearing this, Yu Kyung didn't press the matter further. She knew the cruel Hyun-deok only cared about the company. Hoping to clear up the misunderstanding, Yu Kyung contacted Hae-soo's boyfriend. She asked In-ha why Hae-soo was always against her. In-ha explained that Hae-soo was no longer the weak girl she once was. Now, she was focused on punishing everyone who had wronged her. Hai-Soo entered the room, no longer angry. She told Yu Kyung not to rush. If they could find the person who wanted them dead, the misunderstanding between them would naturally be resolved. In-ha also promised Yu Kyung that he would help Hai-Soo find the mastermind. To uncover the truth, In-ha gathered the entire family. He revealed that the mother and daughter had become enemies, arguing to the point of severing their relationship. Hearing this, Hyun-deok was overjoyed. She told her grandson that this was the outcome she had desired. She wanted to exploit Hai-Soo's desire for revenge and then eliminate Yu Kyung. Upon confirming that Hyun-deok was the mastermind behind everything, In-ha stood up and opened a folding screen. Sitting on the other side were Hai-Soo and her mother. They were furious to learn that Hyun-deok's machinations were the cause of all the misunderstandings. Yu Kyung not only discovered Si-young's false identity but also her manipulative nature. Enraged, Yu Kyung warned Si-young. Remembering the 20 years they had spent together, she told Si-young never to contact her again. If she persisted, they would become enemies. Tears streamed down Si-young's face as she begged for forgiveness. Despite having lived under Hai-Soo's identity for 20 years, she couldn't let go of her feelings. But Yu Kyung was unwilling to forgive her manipulative daughter, having witnessed Si-young's ruthlessness. When Si-young returned to her office, she found her mother-in-law had brought her many nutritious foods, hoping she would regain her strength and become pregnant again. But Si-young was in no mood to think about pregnancy. She was no longer a wealthy heiress and could face divorce at any moment. Their argument was overheard by Jae-ho. He questioned his wife about when she would get pregnant and warned, "If you don't want to live a good life, let's get divorced soon." This angered Yu Kyung, leaving her speechless. Si-young, agitated, knew her husband still had feelings for Hai-Soo. After all, Hai-Soo was the real heiress. Turning away, Jae-ho went to Hai-Soo's mother. He asked, "When can I remarry Hai-Soo?" Furious, Yu Kyung threw tea in his face. "My daughter's happiness is in her own hands," she declared. "If you dare bother her again, don't blame me for being unforgiving." Undeterred, Jae-ho arrogantly warned her that he would soon become chairman. "If you don't give Hai-Soo to me," he threatened, "both of you might die here." The heir to a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate gave up his claim to the company, and even his relationship with his powerful grandmother, all for love. Despite abandoning his life of luxury, In-ha felt a sense of relief. His grandmother was ruthless, and he feared becoming like her. After his departure, Hyun-deok ordered her subordinates to freeze his bank accounts. She believed her pampered grandson would crawl back within days. But In-ha was determined to sever ties. For survival, he turned to his girlfriend, Hai-Soo. He knew only this kind-hearted woman could help him now. Soon, the two were living together, their relationship progressing at an incredible pace. The couple, having weathered many storms, were finally opening up to each other. But at this crucial moment, a frantic knock interrupted them. Hai-Soo found her ex-boyfriend, Jae-ho, at the door. He criticized them for living together before marriage, calling it shameless. In-ha angrily warned Jae-ho to stay away. Jae-ho retorted that he would personally destroy Hai-Soo's happiness. Infuriated, In-ha punched him. He knew if he didn't teach this scoundrel a lesson, he would continue to harass them. After the drama subsided, Hai-Soo voiced her concerns. Her career advancement within the company wasn't going smoothly. To defeat Hyun-deok, she needed to improve the company's performance, and for the design department, that meant creating best-selling products. Despite her worries, Hai-Soo's expression hinted at a well-formed plan. The next morning, Hai-Soo and her boyfriend went to pick up her future mother-in-law, the very talent their fashion design department desperately needed. Initially, it seemed like a promising partnership, but Hai-Soo's sworn enemy had her sights set on them. How long until this scheming woman faced retribution? Sun Young, armed with tens of millions, went shopping at a luxury store. She discovered the limited edition dress she coveted was already being worn by someone else. She arrogantly mocked the other woman, calling her poor and unworthy of the expensive dress. However, Yu Kyung was also a wealthy woman. She told Sun Young she was willing to pay double the price. This infuriated Sun Young, who, in a fit of rage, ripped the dress strap. But Yu Kyung's next move was even more provocative. She threw the dress on the floor in front of everyone. If she couldn't have it, no one could. This act of defiance caused a complete falling out. It turned out Sun Young was a major shareholder in Yu Kyung's company, a multi-billionaire and Hai-Su's future mother-in-law. Yu Kyung was currently second in command, tasked with designing a hit fashion line. The company desperately needed a top designer to turn things around. Hearing of a highly reputable designer returning from abroad, Yu Kyung sought them out. To her surprise, the woman she eagerly awaited was Sun Young. Yu Kyung asked if she was the designer their company was looking for. Sun Young presented a business card, stating she wasn't the designer but their representative. As they parted, Sun Young mentioned an upcoming fashion show. Si Young, standing nearby, quickly offered her own business card, hoping to flatter Sun Young and secure a collaboration. Her eagerness stemmed from a desire to harm Yu Kyung, to prove she could thrive without Yu Kyung's support. After all, Yu Kyung now knew she wasn't her biological daughter. She relayed the recent events to Hyun Deok, who seemed worried, sensing that Sun Young was plotting something. As it turned out, Sun Young was at Hai-Su's house. Their conversation flowed easily. It was revealed that after Hai-Su's car accident 3 years prior, In-ha had taken her abroad. During that difficult time, she met Sun Young. So, upon returning, Sun Young sought out Hai-Su first. Sun Young then revealed her true motive for returning, to find her husband's killer. Based on her own deductions, she had identified Hyun Deok as the prime suspect. This enraged In-ha. He argued that while his grandmother was cruel, she would never kill his father for profit. Initially, out of respect for Hai-Su, Sun Young had intended to collaborate with Yu Kyung. But In-ha's words sparked a new suspicion. She now suspected Yu Kyung, a woman known for prioritizing profit, could be the murderer. Meanwhile, Hai-Su found herself face to face with a mother who had abandoned her over 20 years ago. Yet, she refused to acknowledge her. They worked in the same company but lived like strangers. As they parted, Yu Kyung reminded Hai-Su to dress warmly, but Hai-Su pushed her away. After her daughter left, Yu Kyung pondered why Hai-Su wouldn't accept her. It turned out Hai-Su feared jeopardizing her revenge plan. She worried that developing feelings for Yu Kyung would cloud her judgment. Hai-Su's ultimate target was Hyun Deok, the one who had separated her from her mother for 10 years. Next was Si Young, the scheming woman who had stolen her identity. Their company's performance was suffering. Hyun Deok's priority was reviving the fashion design department. Coincidentally, Hai-Su's future mother-in-law represented a renowned designer. Motivated by filial piety, Hai-Su decided to help her mother secure the collaboration, which would also aid her own fight against Hyun Deok. So, Hai-Su brought her future mother-in-law to meet Yu Kyung. Seeing Hai-Su initiate contact, Yu Kyung ordered a feast. But Sun Young, unimpressed, asked Hai-Su for a simple meal instead. Soon, Hai-Su brought a steaming bowl of noodles. Despite the simple fare, they ate happily together. Their laughter and easy conversation pierced Yu Kyung's heart. She thought that if she hadn't lost Hai-Su 20 years ago, she might have been happy. Desperate to secure the collaboration with Sun Young, Yu Kyung drank heavily with her. But every time she raised her glass, they ignored her. The three stayed late into the night. Unable to contain her longing, Yu Kyung pleaded with Hai-Su for understanding. She hadn't intentionally abandoned her. There were secrets Hai-Su didn't know. Hai-Su also opened up, confessing her desire for a normal mother-daughter relationship, for unconditional love. After this confession, she left, unwilling to dwell on painful memories. Heartbroken, Yu Kyung vowed to destroy the cruel Hyun Deok. If she hadn't switched Hai-Su, her daughter wouldn't hate her so much. The next morning, Yu Kyung summoned everyone, wanting Sun Young to decide who to collaborate with. Sun Young stated the legendary designer had instructed her to wait until after the fashion show to announce their decision. With the decision still pending, Si Young stormed back to her office. A collaboration with the designer meant more shares for her. But this cunning woman had no idea that the top fashion designer she craved was actually Hai-Su. The impostor entered Yu Kyung's office, greedily eyeing her luxury items. A daring idea began to form in Si Young's devious mind. 10 years ago, she successfully replaced someone else, becoming the heiress of a wealthy conglomerate. Even now, with her true identity exposed, she believes she'll soon oust Yu Kyung and become vice president. She even fantasizes about how she'll punish Yu Kyung and her daughter once she succeeds. Just then, Yu Kyung enters the room. Si Young, startled, quickly rises and feigns affection for the woman she's been calling mother. But Yu Kyung is having none of it. She curtly orders Si Young to leave her office, warning her to stop bothering her. If Si Young truly wants to change her fate, she should disappear. These words pierce Si-young's heart. She can't understand how Yu Kyung, after 20 years, can be so heartless. Furious, Si-young vows to destroy both Yu Kyung and her daughter once she achieves her goals. Unbeknownst to her, the real heiress has already begun her revenge plot and has even been seen in her husband's office. Si-young goes to Jai-ho, intending to discuss how to deal with the mother and daughter, but walks in on them in a compromisingly close moment. She immediately assumes Hai-soo is trying to sabotage her marriage. Jai-ho, witnessing their unresolvable argument, angrily tells Si-young to leave him alone. He's sick of their tense marriage. In truth, he's grown disgusted with Si-young, knowing a future with this impostor will lead nowhere, especially considering his desire to ruin the reputation of the woman he once loved. Hai-soo invites Jai-ho to her house. He assumes she still harbors feelings for him. Looking into her seemingly affectionate eyes, Jai-ho leans in for a kiss. But just as their lips are about to touch, Hai-soo pushes him away and tells him she has a shocking video to show him. Jai-ho watches in horror as the video reveals him destroying evidence of a crime. This unexpected revelation terrifies him. He realizes his secret murder is exposed. Cunningly, Jai-ho embraces Hai-soo, gazing at her intensely. He promises to leave Si-young if she keeps his secret. But does Hai-soo really want to be with him? When Jai-ho returns home, he immediately orders Si-young to leave, claiming he no longer needs useless people around him. Heartbroken, Si-young cries. She can't believe the man she loved could be so cruel, so willing to discard her for his own benefit. She remembers when Jai-ho was poor and how she never looked down on him. Now, for the sake of his future, he's abandoning her. Enraged, Si-young vows to destroy this ungrateful man, even if it means her own ruin. The impostor who stole the life of the heiress thought she could manage everything perfectly, but her deception was uncovered. Now, only endless torment awaits her. With the real heiress now the head designer, Hai-soo confronts Si-young, ordering her to vacate the office immediately. She coldly states that such a luxurious space is only suitable for those of high standing. Si-young protests, arguing that she's worked there for years. How can she be so callously dismissed? Then, remembering Hai-soo's new position, she reluctantly agrees. She knows she can't fight Hai-soo now. As Si-young leaves, Hai-soo instructs her to clean the office after packing her belongings. This final blow strikes deep. Pampered since childhood, Si-young has never had to clean anything. The next morning, Hai-soo arrives impeccably dressed. Finding Si-young still there, she questions her intentions, asking if she plans to overstay her welcome. Si-young explains that even if she's leaving, she needs time to prepare. To her surprise, Hai-soo assigns her a desk in the crowded, communal office space. After Si-young settles in, Hai-soo adds insult to injury, mocking her lack of talent and declaring her unworthy of a private office. Furious, Si-young appeals to Yu Kyung, hoping for understanding and a more comfortable arrangement. Instead, Yu Kyung remains firm, telling Si-young to stop calling her mother, and suggesting she resign if she's dissatisfied. Yu Kyung's harsh words leave Si-young heartbroken and confused by the depth of her animosity. Leaving the office, Si-young encounters Hai-soo's wealthy boyfriend. He offers no sympathy for her plight, sarcastically suggesting she work hard and maybe earn a promotion someday. At the end of the workday, Si-young, unable to finish her tasks, is forced to work late into the night. Hai-soo observes her, commenting on her commendable work ethic. As everyone else leaves, Si-young feels utterly defeated. How can she, a woman in her 30s, endure such humiliation? She vows to teach the arrogant Hai-soo a lesson and ruin the man she once loved, if she ever gets the chance. Hai-soo seeks out her married ex-boyfriend. Despite her disgust for him, she's willing to use any means necessary to destroy the man who betrayed her. Seeing her apparent affection, he takes her hand, promising to leave the wicked Si-young if they can rekindle their relationship. But Hai-soo no longer trusts his sweet words. She demands concrete action, warning him not to contact her again otherwise. But does Hai-soo truly want Jai-ho back? After Jai-ho drives her home, he prepares a lavish dinner for Si-young. She takes a bite, marveling at her perfect husband. Before she can take a second, he reveals his shameless request. Jai-ho confesses to murder and asks Si-young to take the fall for him. Fearing her anger, he promises to spare no expense to get her out of prison. Infuriated, Si-young throws the food aside, refusing to be his scapegoat. She knows that once she's in prison, Jai-ho will undoubtedly reunite with Hai-soo. But the arrogant Jai-ho ignores her protests. Already frustrated, he becomes enraged, warning Si-young that if she doesn't appear at the police station by 10 a.m. the next day, their marriage is over. Si-young fails to appear. Instead, she seeks out Hyun-deok, Jae-ho's grandmother, pleading for help. Desperate to avoid prison, she reminds Hyun-deok of her devoted service to the family, begging her to find another scapegoat for Jae-ho. But Hyun-deok is unmoved, slapping Si-young and demanding to know why she won't help her grandson. Desperate, Si-young urges Hyun-deok to think carefully. The victim, initially hospitalized but alive, died mysteriously later. She suspects someone is framing her. Intrigued, Hyun-deok agrees to consider the possibility and promises to find the real killer. Hyun-deok's anger stemmed from a promise she'd made to her son. Si-young voluntarily entered the interrogation room, where prosecutor Jae-ho questioned her directly. He asked, "Why would you kill someone you're not related to?" Facing his suspicion, Si-young claimed she had a motive for murder, but she wasn't the killer. This illogical response infuriated Jae-ho, who felt pressured by her words. After the interrogation, he went to his wealthy grandmother. He couldn't understand why Si-young would surrender, but not confess. Hyun-deok revealed she orchestrated the whole thing, instructing Jae-ho to find the mastermind behind her son's death. In return, she promised him the position of deputy chief prosecutor. Jae-ho almost laughed at the offer, realizing he could not only get promoted but also remarry Hae-soo. Later, Jae-ho visited Si-young in jail. He offered to help her get out if she signed the divorce papers. When Yoo Kyung, feeling obligated, visited Si-young, she was met with a cold reception and told never to return. Si-young then put on a pitiful act, claiming she hadn't eaten all day and begging for food. Despite her reluctance, Yoo Kyung, after 20 years of shared life, provided a meal. As she left, Si-young pleaded for forgiveness for her youthful mistakes, claiming she never meant to hide the truth. Unmoved, Yoo Kyung refused to forgive the manipulative Si-young and warned her to stay away. But would the cunning Si-young truly give up? In reality, her situation was even more dire than imagined. She'd lost not only her position as head designer to Hae-soo, but also her marriage to Jae-ho. Perhaps this was karma. Unwilling to accept defeat, her resentment grew. The next day, she confronted Yoo Kyung again, lamenting, "How could everything change overnight? Why won't you accept me as your daughter?" Yoo Kyung explained that she realized her past love was misguided and that she shouldn't have abandoned her inherent goodness for selfish desires. Si-young grew increasingly agitated, unable to comprehend how Yoo Kyung could so easily discard her. Yoo Kyung urged her to leave and forget about their past relationship. This callous dismissal shattered Si-young, who raged against the unfairness of her fate. Back at the house, her mother-in-law demanded she leave, presenting the land deed and declaring herself the rightful owner. Defeated, Si-young left. At the hotel, she was informed that her card was declined. As she turned to leave, the clerk revealed that her wealthy grandmother was furious and had ordered the hotel to refuse her service. Si-young realized everyone was against her. To add to her misery, her purse was snatched as she left the hotel. Destitute, she sat alone on the sidewalk. Returning to the house, she found her mother-in-law asleep. Cold and hungry, Si-young's anger festered. She knew that if the real daughter hadn't returned, Yoo Kyung wouldn't have exposed her, and her mother-in-law wouldn't have ridiculed her. She blamed Hae-soo for everything. But when she confronted Hae-soo the next day, she found her no longer the meek girl she once knew. Hae-soo warned Si-young that this was just the beginning of her punishment, promising to inflict unimaginable pain. Left with no other choice, Si-young turned to Hyun-deok. She wanted to know her husband's whereabouts, certain that Hyun-deok was hiding Jae-ho. But Hyun-deok refused to reveal his nephew's location and told Si-young to leave, saying their family no longer needed a useless person like her. Just when she thought she might never recover, Jae-ho finally returned, his eyes filled with anger. The first time the young woman met her future mother-in-law, she was gifted a 10-carat diamond ring. Her eyes widened in surprise at the generous present. Under the watchful eye of her future mother-in-law, the couple affectionately exchanged diamond rings. It seemed their wedding was just around the corner. But this heartwarming scene wasn't met with universal blessings. Her ex-boyfriend, nearby, nearly rushed in to break them up. But the timely arrival of his wife stopped Jae-ho's impulsive action. Even after leaving, Jae-ho couldn't accept his ex-girlfriend's new relationship. Si-young told him to focus on his work, reminding him that as a Keeball heir, he shouldn't be consumed by romance. She further reminded her husband that Hae-soo was now the company's largest shareholder. if he wanted Hai-Su, he first needed to acquire her shares. Jai-ho listened with a look of satisfaction. The ambitious man clearly still had his sights set on Hai-Su. Meanwhile, Hai-Su, blissfully unaware of these machinations, had returned home with In-ha. They were sharing stories and reminiscing, a picture-perfect couple. To break them up, Si-young contacted Hai-Su's mother, the same woman Si-young had previously replaced as Yoo Kyung's daughter. She played the victim, claiming that despite not being Yoo Kyung's biological daughter, she had still lost a mother's love. She couldn't bear to see Hai-Su living a better life, marrying into a wealthy family. This finally pushed Yoo Kyung over the edge. She ordered Si-young to leave, furious and unwilling to speak further with the manipulative young woman. She couldn't understand how Si-young's heart had become so twisted. But did you think Si-young's schemes ended there? After leaving her mother's office, she sought out Baem-seok. She pathetically pleaded with him to let her stay, appealing to the bond they had shared for over 20 years, hoping he would show her some compassion. But, like Yoo Kyung, he was ready to abandon her. Baem-seok offered a strand of his hair and told Si-young to get a paternity test. If there was a 50% match, he would continue to support her. This highly improbable requirement seemed like Si-young's only lifeline, but the results revealed they were not related at all. This meant Si-young had no reason to remain in her former home. But the cunning young woman had become delusional. She blamed everything on Hai-Su. If it weren't for her, Si-young would still be Yoo Kyung's daughter, loved and cherished. Now, she was destitute and alone. At this point, Si-young was unaware that Jai-ho had already purchased a ring and secretly arranged to meet Hai-Su at a restaurant. Upon meeting her, he presented a 10-carat diamond ring and promised Hai-Su a portion of his company shares if she left In-ha. Tempted by the offer, she hesitated. Unbeknownst to them, In-ha witnessed the entire exchange from afar. He rushed towards them in a panic, but this small incident didn't faze Jai-ho. Hai-Su stepped outside and told In-ha not to misunderstand. She claimed she was only there to discuss custody of their daughter, but Jai-ho had unexpectedly proposed. In-ha remained unaware of the truth. Si-young flew into a rage. Before Hai-Su could explain further, Jai-ho stormed out of the store and punched In-ha without a word. In-ha was about to retaliate when Jai-ho's men restrained him. Jai-ho arrogantly warned In-ha that he was now the chairman of the Chinha group and ready for any challenge. Furious, In-ha vowed to teach the arrogant man a lesson when the opportunity arose. Back home, Hai-Su rushed to bandage her boyfriend's wounds. She insisted she had already cut ties with Jai-ho and was only focused on reclaiming her company. In-ha remained suspicious, still confused as to why she had seemingly accepted Jai-ho's proposal. It turned out that Hyun-deok had approached Hai-Su earlier. She urged Hai-Su to remarry Jai-ho for the sake of their daughter. Hyun-deok promised to hand over Jai-ho's newly acquired chairmanship to Hai-Su, allowing her to be with her daughter and control the Chinha group. This was why Hai-Su had secretly met with Jai-ho. Upon hearing this, In-ha scolded Hai-Su for her naivete. He pointed out that Hyun-deok was likely manipulating them into marriage, first to diminish Yoo Kyung's desire to fight for the company, and then to benefit Jai-ho. Seeing Hai-Su's distress, In-ha offered to help raise their daughter and spend the rest of his life with her. But Hai-Su rejected the idea, saying their daughter only recognized Jai-ho as her father. Hearing this, In-ha pleaded with Hai-Su to consider his feelings. He suggested their daughter might be too young to understand and might change her mind in a few years. Hai-Su remained conflicted, acknowledging Jai-ho's role as the child's biological father. However, In-ha's persistent persuasion began to sway her. The next day at work, Hai-Su was still pondering In-ha's words when Jai-ho's wife stormed in. Learning of the situation, she became enraged, accusing Hai-Su of stealing the man she loved. The heated argument attracted Hai-Su's mother, but Si-young remained unafraid, even telling Hai-Su to stop bothering Jai-ho. This infuriated Hai-Su, who slapped Si-young. She angrily told Si-young to find out who Jai-ho really was and why he was so shamelessly clinging to her. Yoo Kyung, still not satisfied, shoved Si-young, who finally calmed down after falling. She suddenly felt pathetic, realizing her mother truly didn't want her. Heartbroken, she left. Yoo Kyung didn't realize that the vindictive Si-young wasn't finished with them. Grief-stricken, Si-young vowed to destroy both mother and daughter. The distraught woman slowly made her way to the rooftop. Everything around her seemed to become a memory. As she prepared to jump, she smiled at her son running towards her, but her body fell regardless. In-ha was stunned. He couldn't understand why his mother would choose suicide. By the time he reached the bottom, he found his mother in excruciating pain. He didn't know how he would go on. It had been his wedding day. He had been overjoyed, waiting for his mother to arrive, but a waiter informed him of a distraught woman, seemingly his mother, exhibiting suicidal tendencies. Despite his efforts, In-ha couldn't save her. He soon held a grand funeral for his mother. In this moment of immense grief, a realization dawned on him. He suspected foul play, but he could never have guessed the culprit. Soon, a clue emerged. A subordinate informed them that Sun Young had eaten a bowl of porridge before her suicide. Yu Kyung immediately recognized this as a potentially crucial piece of evidence in Sun Young's death. To uncover the truth quickly, Yu Kyung summoned In-ha. She suggested an autopsy might reveal something in the porridge. Although In-ha deeply respected his mother, he agreed to Yu Kyung's request to catch the culprit. He vowed to bring the mastermind to justice. At this point, In-ha had no idea that Jai-ho was responsible for his mother's death, having given her a hallucinogen to prevent his marriage to Hai-soo. This foolish act had unintended, fatal consequences. Meanwhile, Jai-ho sought out Hyun-deok. Unaware of what had transpired, Hyun-deok asked Jai-ho if he was responsible for Sun Young's death. Jai-ho arrogantly replied, "So what if I killed her? I have you to protect me." Hyun-deok was taken aback, noting the similarities in their ruthless natures. Things quickly progressed. In-ha discovered Jai-ho's involvement in his mother's death and decided to expose him during the company's new product launch. The cruel chairman met a tragic end. Living in a nursing home, she had expected a peaceful retirement, but her visiting nephew gave her a cup of poison tea. Unsuspecting, Hyun-deok drank it, experiencing agonizing pain and crying out to her nephew for help. He showed no remorse, turning and walking away. After a painful struggle, Hyun-deok breathed her last. Jai-ho's motive was to silence Hyun-deok, who had discovered his fabricated identity. To secure his inheritance, he had ruthlessly murdered her. By the time the real nephew, In-ha, arrived, Hyun-deok was gone. In-ha cried out in anguish. Despite her cruelty in life, her sudden death was a devastating blow. Soon after, Jai-ho arrived at the hospital, immediately putting on a convincing display of grief. In reality, the impostor shed no real tears. The family held a grand funeral for Hyun-deok. With Hyun-deok gone, Jai-ho felt secure. He planned to ensure his wife inherited Hyun-deok's entire fortune. Before being hospitalized, Hyun-deok, aware of Jai-ho's deception and seeking to protect her assets, had transferred her chairmanship to Si-young. She had no idea Jai-ho would kill her for his own gain. After the funeral, Jai-ho met with Si-young, confessing to poisoning Hyun-deok and boasting about their impending wealth. Si-young praised his decisive action. Unbeknownst to them, Yu Kyung had bugged the room, recording their entire conversation. However, she didn't immediately expose them, wanting the cruel couple to suffer more. Later, Yu Kyung brought her granddaughter to In-ha, revealing Jai-ho's crimes. In-ha was shocked by the depths of his cruelty. Yu Kyung cautioned him against acting rashly, as they lacked sufficient evidence to legally pursue Jai-ho. Retribution swiftly caught up with Jai-ho. Si-young, driven by greed, betrayed him, revealing his crimes to Yu Kyung to claim Hyun-deok's fortune for herself. Jai-ho was blindsided by his wife's betrayal, having believed they were partners in crime. He now faced the prospect of imprisonment, outmaneuvered by someone even more ruthless than himself. On her first day of kindergarten, Jai-ho's daughter, expecting joy, found herself isolated and friendless. The other children whispered about her father being a murderer. These taunts caused her immense pain. As she was about to tell her teacher, she overheard the other parents gossiping about her father, saying, "Make her leave. We don't want our children playing with her." Overhearing everything, the little girl couldn't contain her emotions any longer. She cried out that her father was a good man and ran away, heartbroken. When she arrived home, her grandmother asked why she had disobeyed her teacher and come home early. The girl tearfully explained that the other children wouldn't play with her, calling her father a murderer. Her grandmother didn't know how to respond, knowing Jai-ho was indeed guilty. Not long before, the girl's mother had publicly accused Jai-ho of murder in a live broadcast, though he hadn't yet been convicted. This news had spread nationwide, leading to the young girl's ostracization at kindergarten. Seeking justice for her granddaughter, Kong-suk confronted Hai-soo, accusing her of falsely labeling Jai-ho a murderer. Hai-soo warned Kong-suk that her broadcast statements were true and urged her to confess if she had any conscience. Kong-suk argued that even if Jai-ho was guilty, their granddaughter shouldn't be involved. Frustrated by Kong-suk's denial, Hai-soo insisted the child deserved to know the truth, regardless of Jai-ho being her father. But the agitated Kong-suk remained deaf to Hai-soo's words, convinced of her son's innocence. When Jai-ho returned home from work, he found his daughter still upset. Trying to cheer her up, he offered to drive her to school the next day. This only angered her further. She told him never to take her to school again, as it would only worsen the other children's taunts. She stormed off to her room. Jai-ho suddenly realized that if he didn't change the situation, he might lose his daughter completely. Finally, the Keeball heir, burdened by his crimes, had an epiphany. To avoid being hated by future generations, he decided to end his life. But as he was about to jump, his daughter rushed in, desperately pleading with him to stop. She declared she wouldn't want to live if he left her. Jai-ho, initially resolved to die, couldn't bear to leave his daughter. He fell to his knees, overcome with grief. It seemed that only by facing justice could he continue to be a part of his daughter's life. It turned out he had recently murdered his wealthy grandmother. Fearing imprisonment, he had chosen a hasty end. But his daughter's appearance forced him to confront his mistakes. Soon after, he was arrested. Before his sentencing, Hai-soo gave him a photo of his daughter, urging him to reform in prison so that perhaps, after 20 years, his daughter might still call him Dad. Looking at the photo, he recalled happy memories with his child, remembering their warmth and happiness. If not for his greed, they might still have that life. Jai-ho vowed to be a good father upon his release. Meanwhile, Hai-soo had assumed the chairmanship, congratulated by her mother, Yoo Kyung. After much hardship, they had finally reclaimed their company. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Back home, Yoo Kyung told her granddaughter that while Jai-ho was her biological father, he had forfeited that right and suggested she call In-ha Dad from now on. The little girl wasn't saddened by this news, already feeling loved by In-ha. In the blink of an eye, Hai-soo and In-ha's wedding day arrived. Hai-soo vowed to be a good wife to the man before her. Surrounded by loved ones, they exchanged vows.